Hey everyone, my name is Usman and in this video I will deep dive into how we can make custom nodes in Lexical. First we'll make a custom text tag node by extending the text node. Then we will implement a question React component based node by extending the decorator node. And during the process of building these nodes, we'll learn everything about Lexical nodes. So if you're interested, make sure to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's get into it. Also, my Patreon is up. The link will be in the description. If you want to support, you can support using these 3 tiers. Silver member tier has already got 2 members. Also, there's the gold tier, also the diamond tier. So if you want to support me outside of YouTube, I would greatly appreciate if you would do it. Okay, so I've removed the question and tag node code, and you can see that this particular implementation is basically the implementation and lexical editor I built in the lexical crash course. So if you haven't watched it and you are new to lexical, I would recommend you to watch that, and I will link it in the iCard in the description as well. You can go watch it. It is the best intro to lexical, and you will basically learn how to build this. So after this, now I want to implement two kind of nodes. First is a tag node, which I showed you in the intro, and a question node, which is a React component based node. I showed you in the intro as well. First of all, let's see what are nodes. So in Lexical, everything is a node. The content editable, like the portion in which we are writing, that is a node as well. That is called the root node. And apart from that as well, everything is a node. So if you want to add some custom thing in Lexical, you will basically have to add a node and basically extend some type of node and add your own functionality in that node. And we'll in this basically course we'll look at how we can do that. So if you go to the lexical documentation, you will see that there are 5 base nodes, and if you want to make a custom node, you will basically have to extend these. So root node is the content editable itself. Line break node is if you want to add a line break in your rich text editor, and then these 3 are the node types that are basically exposed by lexical package, and we can basically extend them to add our own functionality. So the element node, text node, and decorator node. So in this particular course, I will extend the text node to make a tag node where it will have a styling of a tag node, and then I will extend the decorator node to basically make the question or question component inside the lexical text editor. Right now in the custom onChange plugin I basically taught that in the crash course. So I am basically from the editor generating HTML from the nodes and assigning it to a state. And to show you how the nodes look like, I'm basically converting that HTML back into nodes and console logging it whenever I would change something in the editor so that you can see the nodes. So here, if I change something and go to nodes, you'll see that says it's a paragraph node. So paragraph node is an extension of the element node. So paragraph node is inheriting the element node. So element node has some features. Paragraph node has inherited it and added its own properties, which the element node didn't have. Basically added some more functionalities. So similarly, if I enter and type something else and I now check the nodes, you'll see that there are 4 nodes now and there are 4 paragraphs. So 2 paragraph nodes for the line breaks are added, and then 1 paragraph node for this, 1 paragraph node for this. So similarly, everything inside lexical is a node. If you want to add something, as I said before, you'll have to build a node. So yeah, let's do that. Enough talk. So basically I want to implement this node. So basically this is just text. I would want that the text node has some custom base styling. So it has a grayish border, it has a gray background, it has a border radius, some padding, and a custom font size. So every time I'm typing inside this particular case, it basically has these tag kind of styles. So for this particular purpose, I will extend the text node. So let's do that. I will go here, I will go to the nodes. Where are the nodes? Okay, so let me make a nodes folder. So nodes, here I would add the tag node. So let me make the tag node. It would be export class tag node extends text node. I will import it from lexical. Then I will have to do some stuff. So first let me add the constructor for text node. So the constructor implementation will be different for different types of nodes. For text node, I will receive the text here and the node key. which would be of type node key. So the node key is basically used to distinguish every node in your editor. So we won't have to pass it, Lexical would automatically basically create it for us. But that would be the second optional param. And then super text key. So super basically, calls the constructor of the inherited class. And in this case, we are inheriting TextNode, the parent class. So super is basically calling the constructor of that. So we're basically taking in the text and node key and passing it in the constructor of TextNode. Simple. Now for all nodes, there are two other methods which are required. So one is a getType method and then one is a clone method. Static getType. So getType is a method in which we have to return a string which uniquely describes that particular node. So what is the type of tag node? Let's say it is tag. So this type would uniquely distinguish all tag nodes inside the text editor. All tag nodes in the text editor have the type tag. Similarly, I will implement the question node as well. That would have a unique type as well, and all the question nodes in the rich text editor would have a similar type. So that is what this is, and this is a mandatory method. You have to add it. Similarly, clone. So clone is an internal method, and basically it takes in the node. In this case, it would take the tag node. It would also return the tag node. So I would just return another tag node class, and I would pass the text and the node key of the current node. So I would create a new node, a new tag node from the current tag node. So you can see that I am getting these properties under underscore text underscore key. These are the properties of the text node. In this particular class, I haven't added any new property because there is no need. I can add them, but right now I'm just inheriting this class, and I don't need anything special. So basically I'm just getting the text property and the key property from the text node class itself. If I expect the text node class, you will see all these properties: text, format, style, mode, detail, etc. So that is how I'm able to get these properties. So the clone method is internally called by Lexical for a lot of different scenarios. So you have to implement it. That is required, otherwise your node would break. It wouldn't work. So that is done. Now createDOM. So I would do this. So createDOM should return a DOM element for this particular text node. So normally for the text node, the DOM element is a span. So that is cool. Normally it will be a span, but I want to add some custom styling of my own. So for this particular purpose, I'm adding the createDOM function as well for the text node. If you don't want to add it, that is totally fine as well. So as an example, I will say const element is equal to super.createDOM. I'll pass in the config, and then I will return the element. And then there is another method known as updateDOM. So updateDOM basically returns a boolean, and I will return false here. If you don't want that, in certain cases when Lexical is performing reconciliation to see if the node has changed its state or not, if the node is same or not, it doesn't rerun this createDOM again and again, you return false. If you want that during reconciliation it reruns the createDOM function, then you can return true. For my particular case, I don't want that, so I will just return false. So yeah, that is it. I will add the styling later, but let me just add the tag node in the rich text editor. You can see that it's working fine. So also I will add two more functions here. So every node in Lexical has a convention for two functions. So every node will have a function which would tell if that particular node is that particular node or not once that node is passed as a param to that function. So it would be like is tag node. So you will be able to pass any node in it and it would return true if it is a tag node. So that is a convention. So if I type is, you'll see is block element node, is decorator node, is element node, is leaf node, blah blah blah. So Lexical package basically exposes these functions to use for us. So if in any scenario I want to see if a node is a decorator node, I can just call this function, pass in the node, and then I will know if that is a decorator node or not. So similarly, another function which we get with each node is a create function. So create line break node, create paragraph node, create tab node, create root node, etc. So we want to make similar functions for the tag node, these two functions. So I'll say export const is tag node is equal to, it would get the node as a param. So the node would have the type of lexical node. I will import it, or null or undefined. And its return type would be node is tag node. So if the return type is true, then that means that it is a tag node. So here I would just say return node instance of tag node. So if the node is an instance of tag node, it would return true. So its return type would become tag node. Another function which I would like to add is the create function. So I'll say const create tag node is equal to, for creation of tag node I would add a param of text. So I should be able to pass in the text in this function, and it should basically give me a node with that text added. So here I would just say return new tag node with the text. So the tag node class expects a text param. So I would pass the text here. Now let me copy the tag node and add it in the list text editor in the config. So if you want your node to work, you will have to add it here, otherwise it wouldn't work. So that is added. Now let me go to the toolbar plugin file. So just like there are a lot of buttons here, I would add an icon button, and I would use the create tag node function on click to add the tag node in the list text editor. So here I would add an icon button. Cool. The area label would be add tag. The icon would be tag, and there would be an on click on add tag. So I'll copy this. Let me create this function. So this function would call editor dot update. So if you want to do anything like insert a node or any other operation, then we have to call it inside the editor dot update function. So I'll say const node is equal to create tag node, and I would pass some dummy text here, and then I would use the insert nodes function and then pass the node. Simple. So this is a dummy text. Again, you can open a modal on clicking of the button, and you can have a text field there with a state, so that whatever you type there can be added in this create tag node function, so that particular tag node with the particular text can be added. But this is just an example. So that is cool. Now when I click on this, you can see the nice tag text. Cool. Now obviously this is just text, there's nothing special, but the node works, so that is cool. So what I would do is I would go to the node tag node file, and I would in the createDOM function edit its styles. So here I would say element dot style dot background is equal to f4 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 f4. So that is a slight light grayish background. Then element dot style dot padding, I would add a top and bottom padding of 4 pixel and a left right padding of 8 pixel. Then border radius of 18 pixel. Then a border of 2 pixels solid, a slight dark grayish color compared to this color. And then finally style dot font size, I would keep it 14 pixels. Great. So let me refresh it. Now when I click on this, you'll see that a nice tag kind of thing is added, it is still a text node. So if I inspect it, you can see that it is a span tag, but with the stylings I added. So, all the styles. So yeah, that is how you can extend a text node. If I come over here and I check the warning, you will see that it says that tag node should implement importJSON method. So basically there are two types of serializations that Lexical provides. There is the JSON serialization, and then there is the HTML serialization and deserialization. So serialization is the process in which you basically create a node from JSON or HTML, and then deserialization is the process in which you create HTML or JSON from a node. For JSON, there are two methods which you can add, importJSON and exportJSON, and then there are two methods for HTML you can add, exportDOM and importDOM. So right now we are using HTML in the custom onChange plugin which we have. We basically in the onChange generate HTML from the nodes. So every time something changes, we save that state, and then initially when we load, we basically generate nodes from that particular DOM state we have whenever we load it, and then we basically write the nodes in the rich text editor. So we're basically using HTML, not JSON, but since it is showing a warning, you can still implement it. So I will go to the tag node. So there are two methods, importJSON and exportJSON. So importJSON is simple and it's quite generic. So I will say static import JSON. So this should return a tag node. So it would get a serialized text node. So serialized text node is just a normal text node, nothing special, because I haven't added any new properties. So all these properties are part of the text node, nothing special. Here I would return create tag node. I would pass in the text from this, because the create tag node function expects a string. And then I will call a function update from JSON, and I would pass in the serialized node. So this would add all the other properties as well. So that is it for the import JSON. Now we have export JSON as well, which we need to add if we have some new properties in the class, which I don't have right now, but still I want to show what export JSON is. So I would say export JSON, cool. So it would return a serialized text node. So I would say return. Basically it would return an object, normal object. So I will say super.exportJSON. So exportJSON is the method of the text node class. Since I don't have any other properties, I will just, if I just return this as well, this would be fine. So I want to show what this does. So this basically converts the node into a object. This takes in an object, converts it into a node. So that is what these are. So let me go to the custom onChange plugin and let me show you the JSON version of this whole state. So here I'll say const JSON is equal to editor state dot to JSON, and I will console log JSON. So let me refresh. Let me add the tag node. So let me go to JSON. That will go to children, and yeah. So this is the tag node. You can see from the type. Type says tag. This is the type which is being returned in the getType function. Cool. And also all the other properties, whatever the text is, and the mode and stylings, etc. So the export JSON already, since I didn't add any property, it basically takes in inside the text node. It has been implemented that it would take all the properties and it would basically return an object of all those properties. However, if I had a property here, like let's say color or something, then I would have to return the color property here as well. So let me give you an example. So here I'll say meow true. So let me refresh it, and let me go to the JSON version of the React state for the rich text editor, and here you'll see that there is also a key value pair added meow true. So whatever we return in the export JSON function, that is the JSON conversion we get. And if you want to basically take in that JSON and basically convert it into nodes so that we can display it in the rich text editor, that function runs and does it. So if you had any properties here in this tag node, then you basically would have to add those properties one by one here. But since I don't have one and I'm just returning the super.exportJSON, I can just, comment it or remove it. I don't need to implement the exportJSON function. Cool. So the tag node has been implemented, but there is a slight issue. So I will save it, and basically clicking on the save button would basically take in the HTML state I have and send it to the server. And then basically loading it would take in the HTML from the server, convert it back to nodes, and would write it to the rich text editor. So let me refresh it. You will see that it basically just displays nice tag without the styles. Now that is an issue with Lexical itself, and in order to work around, Lexical has provided a solution. So we'll implement that. I will link this particular page in the description as well so that you can read it yourself. But basically, if you are using HTML serialization, the styling basically doesn't work properly if you're converting HTML back into nodes. So in order to do that properly, you will have to make an ExtendedTextNode class, and basically inside the config replace all TextNode instances with the ExtendedTextNode instances, which is additional work, but we'll have to do it. So I wouldn't type everything in this ExtendedTextNode in this tutorial because it is a big file and that isn't really related to what we want to do. So I'll just copy it and I will explain what is happening, and we'll have to slightly change it for our scenario. So I'll go here, I'll call it extendedTextNode.tsx. Cool. So basically what it is doing is it is extending text node. All the stuff is pretty simple. It has a getType function, it is cloning, it is calling the super constructor inside the importDOM. So importDOM is the function which basically takes in the HTML and converts it back into node. So inside this we're basically checking if it's a span tag, then basically we want to get the span stylings and apply them manually, and similarly for all the other tags as well. Right now we're just concerned with span since text node is a span tag, but these can stay as well. They are not biting us. And here in the path style conversion function, we're basically getting the styles from the node. We are constructing an array of the styles, just like HTML styles has. It's a key, then a colon, and then whatever the value is. We are filtering them out and then we're joining them by colon. So that is how the style string is in HTML. And then we're basically using the setStyle method of the node to set the styles. So that is what it is. For our case, we don't need some style properties, but we need some. So we do need the background color. So I would just say background here, and here as well, background. We need the font size, but we don't need the text decoration. Similarly, I will basically change these to basically match the stylings I have applied here, because I don't really need to preserve font family or font weight since I'm not really using them. So background can stay. Then similarly padding, so I'll copy padding, and then here as well padding. Let me remove this last item. Then we have border, and then finally border radius. So I'll copy border radius here. And this would be border radius. Now I'll basically have to replace the extended text node with text node everywhere. So I'll copy this. I will go to the rich text editor file, and here I would add this. So let me import the extended text node. Also inside the tag node, let me extend the extended text node instead of text node. So now if I would refresh, it would basically take in the HTML serialization string that we had, and it would basically preserve the styles instead of dumping them. So that's cool. Now I would like to implement the question node. So question node would be a React component. It would have a question text field. I would be able to, add text here. Then, I should be able to basically select an option, add option text, delete options if there are many options, more than two, and then add option button. When I will click, I will be able to add more options. So let's do that. So for that particular purpose, I would copy the tag node. I will create a new file, call it question node.tsx, and then I would basically go here. I would extend the decorator node, and here I would say question node. This would become question node, this would become question node, this would become question. createDOM would just return a span tag. I don't need to apply any styles or anything. I would just use the React component. updateDOM would remain the same. importJSON, let me comment it out for a little bit. Then this would be question node. This would be create question node, and this would be question node, and this would be question node as well. So yeah, so for the question node, I need to add 3 properties. So these 3 properties would basically be one for the answer, and that would be a string, and that string would have the ID of the option which I have selected. And then there would be an options property, and that would basically be an array of options where its type would be an object having 2 properties, an ID which would be string, and then text which would be string as well, which I would display. And then there would be another property for the question. So let's add those 3 properties. So here I would say question string. Options would be of type option array. It would be in the types file. I would just import it. So text and ID. And then the answer would also be a string. So here inside the constructor, I want to get all these and basically assign those properties some values. So I would come here, and instead of text, I would have params, and it would be question string options of type option array, and then the answer would be of type string. And then here I would get the question options and answer from the params. I would just pass the key in the super constructor because that is the only thing it expects. And here I would say this dot question is equal to question. And then let me copy and paste this 2 more times. So this would be options, and this would be the answer. Yeah, this should be all right, fine. So whenever we would be constructing a question node, we will have to pass question and options at least, and then we would basically take these properties we are getting in the constructor, and we would basically assign these properties with those values. Similarly, let me copy this. Where is that? Yeah. And in the create question node, I would basically be these params. So params, and I will pass these params here. Inside the clone function as well, I would return a question node, and then here I would pass the question. So this would be this dot underscore underscore question, then answer would be this dot underscore underscore answer, then options would be this dot underscore underscore options. Oh, I have to do this, my bad. So basically, you have to create a clone from the node we're getting. Now, if you want to return a React component or anything inside this node, then you will have to use the decorate function for it. So I will go here and I'll say decorate, and I would have to return some kind of JSX here. So for now, let me return a div, and let me, just add some dummy text here. So question, cool. So let me copy the question node and add it to the text editor file. Cool. Similarly, let me go to the toolbar plugin and do a similar thing. Add a button which would add the question node. So add question. Let me use a question icon, and then here on add question, and it would be a similar function. It would call the editor.update with the node creation function. So it would be create question node, and instead of text it demands a question. So let me call this what, and then options would be for now a dummy array. So if I click on this question node, you will get this question. So this is the div I'm returning in the question node component. So yeah, this works. Now I will replace the decorate portion with an actual React component, and then we'll basically add methods inside of the question node class to mutate the state of the question node and read the state and everything. Okay, so now let's build the question component, which will show when you will click on this question button. So I'll go here and I will go to the components folder. I will create a question file. Now here I will expect some props. So the props would be question. Let me specify the type first. So question would be a string. Options would be of type option. I would import it from types. Answer would be string or undefined. And then the node key. So why am I getting the node key? I will basically use it to update the data of the question. I will use the node key to get the appropriate node, and then I will use that to update the data for this question node. So for that particular purpose, the node key is required. Its type would be node key, not string. Cool. So let me go at all the stuff, answer, and then node key. Now here let me get a box component, which is just a div in Chakra UI, but it's easier to style it. So here I would say its width should be 260 pixels, its margin top should be 4, its padding would be 3, border would be 2 pixels solid, 3B3 BEE, that's a bluish color. Then a border radius of LG. Here I would add an input for the question field. So let me import it. Its value would be question. So whatever question is coming from the props, its placeholder would be question. And for now, the on change would be empty. But I will add it. Then I will have a radio group. And that radio group would contain the options so that I can select one option out of the many. Its value prop would be the answer, and answer would be basically the ID of the option which is selected, and there would be an on change, which again for now would be empty. Here inside the radio group I would map the option, so I'll say options.map, and then I will get the option. And for now, just let me render the option like this, option.text. But I will make a separate component for the option in a minute. And then beneath that I will have a button. I will import it from Chakra UI. Its size would be XS, its margin would be 2, And then here I would say add option, and I would add an on click later which would add an option, but for now it would be empty. So yeah, let me for now get this question component, go to the question node, and instead of just returning the dummy div, I will import the React component, and I'll pass in the answer, this dot answer. I'll pass in the question, this dot question, then options, this dot options, and the node key would be this dot get key. So now if I click on this question button, you will see this component, and it looks similar to what we want to achieve. So that is cool. When we are clicking it, the node we are creating, we are basically setting the question property to what. So that is why it says what here. And the option, I'm not passing any option right now, so that is why I can't see anything. So if I go to the toolbar plugin, and here instead of the options I pass in two dummy options. So text would be option 1, then another object ID would be 2, text would be option 2, and I refresh and I click on it, you will see option 1 and option 2. So options are being mapped as well. The question is here as well. That is great. Now what we want to do is we want to create a option component, which would basically be a flex container. There would be a radio button, then alongside it there would be an input field so that I can edit the option, and then there would be a cross icon, so I should be able to delete the option as well, just like this. So that is what I want to make as a component. So let's do that. So I will go to question, let me make another component. So I'll say const question option is equal to, as a prop I would be expecting some stuff, so I would be expecting the option itself. So option, then the index of the option, so that would be a number, then all the options all together. I will show you why I need that, and then another function for updating the node, which I will add later. So option index options, here I would return a flex container as I told you, and its align items would be center, and its gap would be 2. And here first of all I will have a radio. Let me import that, and then I will give it the option.id, so that whenever I click on this radio, that particular ID goes into the on change of this radio group, and I set it as an answer. So then the input would have a font size of SM, value would be option.text, height would be 30 pixels, its placeholder would be a template string, so option and then the index +1. So if the input is empty, it would show a placeholder like option 1, option 2, etc. And then again an on change, which right now would be empty. I would show you that in a little bit. And then here I would have an icon button, which would be used to delete the option if I want. So its area label would be remove option, its icon would be X, that is a cross, its color scheme would be red, its size would be SM. The reason why I needed the options is it would be disabled if options.length is less than 2, less than 3 actually. So if there are 2 options, then I don't want the option to be deleted, because that would be dumb. Of course, at least there should be at least 2 options for me to choose. But if I add more options, then I should be able to delete one of them. And then again an on click. Cool, let me get this component, and here instead of this I would render that component. I would pass in the option, Let me get the index. I will pass the index. I'll pass in all the options, and yeah. So yeah, you can see the options here. Cool. Let me wrap them with a flex container so that I can give them a consistent gap. So here its flex direction would be column and a gap of 1 and then a margin top of 2. Now you can see that they have a consistent gap. Cool. So yeah, the component is ready, but now we have to integrate state changes. So I should be able to change the text of the question. I should be able to select the answer via this radio group. I should be able to delete the options. I should be able to add options, etc. So let's do that. So for that particular purpose, I will in the node add a method which would be able to do that. And then since I have the node key here, via the node key, I will get the node. I will have access to that method which would update the question. I will pass that particular question update handler here, which would update the question, and I would then get the updated question as a prop, just like normal state works. So let me do that. So I will go to the question node, and here underneath decorate I will add a function. So that function would be set question text, and it would get the text as a param, and here I would get the getWritable. So the getWritable is, as you can see here, a mutable version of the node. So using this we should be able to mutate the node properties. So if we call getWritable, we get a mutable version of the node. So we get a node object, and we can basically just then mutate it using just like we would mutate a normal object. So I can just do self dot question is equal to text, and that should basically update the question property. And when that would be updated, the decorate function would run again. I would get the updated question here, and then that updated question would go here as a prop, just like the state works. So yeah, now I will have to call it, obviously. So here I would add a function. So whenever you want to do anything inside Lexical, call a node operation, add a node, delete a node, whatever, you need to basically do it inside editor.update. So that is what we will do. So let me make a generic function in which the operation we want to perform would be performed inside editor.update, and also I will add some type safety mechanisms, and then I will reuse that function everywhere in this particular component where I will need to perform node operations. So I will call it the update node function, and this would basically get a callback as a param. So question node void, and then its return type would be void as well. Let me get the editor as well. So I'll say const editor is equal to use lexical composer context. Here I'll say editor.update. Let me get the node from the node key. So I'll say get node by key. I'll pass in the node key here. Cool. If is question node. So that is obviously something that would be obvious, like if the question component is being rendered, obviously it would be a question node. So I can just use like as well. So I can do as question node here as well, but we want to follow the notation that Lexical provides. So since we have an is question node, and if it returns true inside the if, the node's type would change to question node, I can just do cb node. So if I hover over the node now, it says that it is question node because this particular function has returned true for this node. So that is cool. So what we would do is we would call the update node function everywhere, and as a param I would pass a function where the node type is a question node, and then I will call whatever the method I want. So let me show you how I'll do it. So I will come here, I'll say update node. Inside this I would basically get the node as a param because I'm passing callback, and I would say set question text e.target.update. value. Now if I type something, you'll see that whatever I typed was typed here. So what it did was it updated the question property. Updating the question property re-triggered the decorate function. Re-triggering the decorate function basically changed the props, and we got a new question prop value, and I pass, and since I'm passing the question prop value inside the question input field, that is what got reflected here. So let's do that for all the other cases as well. I will add all the methods here, and then basically I will integrate all those methods one by one. Let's add a method for adding an option, so it won't expect anything as a param. I would get the writable, then I'll say self dot options is equal to, I would spread the options, and then I will add a new object where the ID would be a UUID. So let me import UUID. So I'll say import v4 as UUID from UUID v4, from UUID. So I'll get this, and yeah, so the ID would be a UUID and the text would be initially empty. So that would basically add an options object in the options array. So now everything is simple. Now I go here and I will, instead of this, call the add option function. Great. So let me refresh. Let me add the question node again, and ta-da! You saw that now a third option has been added. Also, the cross icon has been enabled, which is great. Also, let me add all the other options. So then it would be delete option. So I would get the writable, and I'll say self dot options. I would get the option to delete here as a param, and then basically I will filter the options. So the options should not be equal to option dot delete. You can compare the ID as well to filter it out, but I'm just comparing the reference. Similarly, set option text. This would be the concerned option I'm talking about. Again, I will use the reference to compare, and this would be the new option text. So now I will use the map, and if the option is the concerned option, then I will change its text to whatever text is coming as a param. Otherwise, it would remain as is. Then set question answer is simple as well. I will just copy it. Set question answer, and I will just update the answer with whatever ID I'm getting here. These are all the methods, so let's integrate them. So yeah, here it would be, where is the update node function? Set question answer, and the ID would go here. Then I would pass the update node here as a param. I would get the update node type from here, and I would add it as a prop. So update node would have the type of this, and then let me copy the update node implementation. In the input, it would be set option text, so I would add the option and the text I'm getting as a param. Similarly here, it would be remove option, so delete option, and I would just pass in the option as a param. The last thing which I forgot, I also should be able to delete the node. So for deleting the node, there is a built-in method in every node called remove. So I will just call remove. So let me add a icon button here, which would be shown at the top right, and it should only be shown on hover. So whenever I hover over a question node, it should show. So for that particular purpose, I will use Takara UI's props. So I will say its position should be relative, its role should be group. Then here I would add an icon button. Its area label would be remove question. Its position would be absolute. Its top would be -2. Its right would be -2. Its icon would again be cross. Size would be XS small. Its C index would be 1 so that it shows above the question node. Display would be none initially, but on group hover, that is whenever this particular div would be hovered, then we would set its display to flex because that is the default display of this icon button. Then on click, so on click I would call the update node function. I would get the node.remove. So now let me try everything. Let me add a question like what is React? It is working. Now here I would say library. The option change is working as well. Now I would select the library. That's cool. Now I should be able to add another option that is working as well. Let me add none of the above. Let me delete this option. That works as well. Hovering over this question node is also showing a cross icon. Clicking on the cross icon deletes the node. Cool. Everything is working fine. Again, just like for the tag node, we have to implement the importJSON and exportJSON methods. We will, implement that in this case as well. They're fairly simple. We don't need to do anything complex. So I'll go to the question node. For the text node, we were able to import the serialized text node type from lexical package because in text I didn't need to add anything else. I didn't add any new property. However, for question node, we have a few other properties which I have added, 3 properties. So for that particular purpose, I will create the serialized type myself. So let's do that. So the serialized type is basically whatever we will return in the exportJSON function. So it would be super.exportJSON. So by default, whatever the properties are for decorator node. For decorator node, the default properties are the type, which would be the type we are returning from the getType function, this, and then the variant. So by default, it would be 1, but you can overwrite it. So these two will be turned from exportJSON, but you will need to add all the other properties here. So question, answer, etc. So let me make the serialized question node type. So basically what I will do is I will get the serialized lexical node as a type, and then I will add further properties to it. So I'll say export type serialized question node is equal to spread. So spread is a lexical TypeScript utility which you can use to spread the properties of one type to another type. So the second param would be serialized lexical node. Cool. So if you hover over the serialized lexical node, as I told you, there are only 2 properties, type and variant. I need to add the properties I have for this particular node myself. So here I'll say question should be a string. Options should be option array, and then answer should be string or undefined. So here I would just do serialized question node. This would return a question node. This would be create question node, and I would just pass the serialized node here as a param. No need to do anything special because the serialized node is an object with the properties, question, options, and answer, and that is what this create question node is expecting as well. So that would work. So importJSON is done and don't need to do anything else. For the exportJSON as well, I don't need to do anything special. I'll just add those 3 properties here. So I'll say answer, this dot answer, question would be this dot question, and then options would be this dot options, and this return type would be serialized question node. So yeah, the type error goes away. Now again, let me show you what happens if I do not add them. So let me comment this out, and let me again go to the onChange plugin and show you the JSON state. So let me refresh, let me add the question node. So that is the JSON. So if I go to the JSON to the question node part, which is here, you will see only two properties, type and version. So if you are using JSON serialization, you are saving the JSON and then you're reading the JSON and you're using it as state, then when you would basically reuse that state to show the content on Lexical, since all the properties like the question options and all the other properties which were vital to the question node are not present, you won't be able to replicate the saved state. Now let me add them back. Now let me refresh it, add the question node again. Now if you go to the question node part, you can see the options, question and answer. So now if you will use this JSON to remake the question node, now it will work because you have the options and questions and everything which are vital for this question node. Cool. Now the last thing which we need to implement is exportDOM and importDOM. So for the case of tag node, we didn't really need to implement it. We had to implement it as part of the ExtendedTextNode. So for exportDOM, since the text node is just a span tag, we don't need to do anything special. But we did implement the importDOM for the style patching and everything. For the question node, however, since it is a decorator node and decorator node is complex, it's a React component, I do need to add exportDOM and importDOM methods, especially the fact that I am using HTML serialization in the onChange plugin. I'm setting the state as an HTML string and I'm basically remaking the state tree using that particular string. So that is vital. So for now, let me show you the value I get, the serialized value I get. Let me comment this JSON bot out. And let me show you what I get in HTML when I add the question node. So let me refresh it. Now when I add the question node, you can see that just a span tag is added. Now, what is this span tag? This span tag is the tag which I am adding as part of createDOM. However, that is not enough to encapsulate the question node. Like if I want to recreate the question node with this span tag, nothing would show because it's just a span tag. It's not something from which I can recreate this question node, right? So if I, let's say, save it and I refresh, you will see nothing here because it's just this empty span tag. What do we want Lexical to do? So what we want to do is the span tag can stay, but basically what we'll do is we can inside the span tag or whatever HTML tag add some data attributes, and in those data attributes we can add all these properties as data. So I can have a span tag and then as a data attribute like data options, I can add the options there. Then I can have another attribute like data question, I can add the question here, and then data answer, and then I can add the answer here as a param, and that would be exportDOM. So whenever we would do HTML serialization, we will be converting the node to HTML. We'll create an HTML element and I will pass the question, answers and options as data attributes of that tag. So that would be exportDOM, and then an importDOM will basically take that particular element, will get the options, answers and question out of that particular element and from those data attributes, and then we'll basically create a new node from it. So that is how it will work. So first of all, let me do the exportDOM. So exportDOM is easy. I'll do exportDOM. I'll say const element is equal to document.create element span. Then here I would say element.set attribute data lexical question. You can see that this is a data attribute, so custom data attribute. I'll pass in the question here. Similarly, let me copy and paste this 2 more times. This would be data lexical options, and I would stringify the options, since the options is an array, and you can set an array as a data attribute. You have to pass a string, and then here it would be answer, and I will add answer here, answer or empty string, since you can pass undefined as well. And then I would just return the element. Cool. So this is the exportDOM done. Now I need to do the importDOM. So here I'll say static importDOM, and yeah, so I'll get the type here. Let me add the method. So its return type would be this, and then here I would say return span. So I am creating a span tag, right, with all that stuff in exportDOM. So here I will add the span, so that basically this question node can detect that, hey, if there is a span, then basically you need to convert it like this. I will pass a function here. So I'll get a DOM node here, which should be an HTML element. So now the exportDOM exports an HTML element, importDOM expects an HTML element, and I will create a node out of it. So if DOM node dot has attribute data lexical question, then return null. So if the DOM node is a span, but it hasn't got the data lexical question attribute, then I don't need to do the conversion, because then that is not a question node. Otherwise, return priority to and then conversion. So that would be a conversion function which I will create. So convert question element. So this would basically convert a question element into a node. And priority is basically if you have multiple conversions for a same HTML element, then you can give a priority that, hey, this node conversion needs to happen first, and this has higher priority, blah blah blah. So I will copy this convert question element, and that convert question element would basically get this. First of all, let me comment it out and show you the exportDOM working in action. So let me refresh. Now I will create a question node, and now you can see that I do have a span tag, but this span tag has got a data attribute. So data lexical question has what? Data lexical options has a stringified scaped options array, and then the data lexical answer has an empty string. So that is basically what exportDOM is doing. importDOM would basically get that particular span and then basically create a node out of it. So I will go here and I will make that function. So convert question element would get a DOM node, which would be an HTML element. Here I would get the question. I will say DOM node dot get attribute data lexical question or empty string. Its return type would be DOM conversion output or null. Then similarly I will get the answer, so I'll say answer, this would go here. Then similarly I would get the options. So for the options, since the options are stringified, I will have to basically parse them. So I will basically, if there are no options as a param, then I would have an empty array, a stringified empty array, and then I will basically wrap them with a JSON.parse so that it doesn't break. If this is a falsy value, at least I'm getting this. So it would be an empty array. And then I will create a node out of it. So I will say create node, create question node. I'll pass in the question, answer, options, and then basically I will return the node. So let me show you the importDOM in action. So let me quickly add a question, what is nice meow. I will select this, add another option which would be empty, let's say, and then I will save it. I will refresh, and then you will see that the question node is present here with all the information. So The exportDOM basically exported it as a span tag with all the information as data attributes, and importDOM basically first of all checked if there is a span tag in the conversion map, and then basically it first of all checked if there is a data lexical question attribute in that span tag. If there isn't anything, then this conversion doesn't need to happen, so it returns null. Otherwise, it basically called this convert question element function. It basically parses all the attributes from that HTML element. It creates a node and it returns it. Now we have a working, full-fledged, beautiful question component, question custom node inside Lexical. So if you like this tutorial, make sure to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Also, my Patreon is up, so if you want to support me in any way possible other than YouTube, then you can do that. There are 3 tiers to choose from. The silver member tier is very cheap, so if you want to do that, I would greatly appreciate it. As always, do support the channel and share the word, and if you have any nice comment to say, you can also comment down below. As always, I will see you in the next video. Bye.